You're coming to you live from Waikanae Beach in New Zealand. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2551. Today, we're going to talk about a very exciting day that I had today and something that people kind of remember to do or may not even think to do. Or some people are sort of like, yes, let's go do this. And it was, where was your family when they took a trip down memory lane? So today we actually drove through to the city where I was born, which is Palmerston North. From my place, it's just slightly over an hour up the road. And this is something that everybody needs to do at some point in time. Just take a trip down memory lane. They're not the kind that are found on computer screens or an old photograph. We actually drove the streets where my story begins, because I was born in Palmerston North. When we first arrived, we took the road up there, and when we got there, we went to the street that my grandparents lived on. Now, my grandparents had lived in other places while they were married. On the way up, we passed the site of the grocery store that they used to run, where they lived in the house behind. It's where my mother and her two sisters were raised for a little bit before they moved into the town of Levin. And at the end of our trip, we actually drove past the house that they lived in. We weren't sure which one it was, but we got the general idea. And then they moved into Palmerston North and into Matapo Street. And so we went into Matapo Street, and there's a lot of changes going on in there, let me tell you. And we slowly drove past so I could take some pictures of, in fact, wait one. Photos. Can I do photos in here? Oh, a window. I need a window. Photos. There we go. This is the house that my grandparents owned for a lot of years. Mum said she was about 6, I think it was, when they moved here. And this is all one big house here, which they had it as one big house for many years. This is the only house I know that I knew my grandparents living in. So they were in there for a lot of decades. At some point during that time, they split the house into 2 flats or 2 apartments. So you had the front half and then you had the back half. The front half had a living room, which could have been used as a bedroom. There was a bedroom, there was a bathroom, and then there was a dining/living room. And then this here is actually the kitchen. This front window is the kitchen. And this is the window to the living room, which was used sometimes as a bedroom. And then you had a second bedroom, which was behind that could be used as a guest room. This window here is into the dining room area, and then there's the bathroom window. And then my grandparents lived in the back half of the house and put this 2-story piece on that had a garage and a carport and my nana's sewing room area. And then down the back, on the back corner here, is where they used to park their caravan or camper trailer. This is the only house I've ever known them to live in. My papa passed away while still living. Well, he didn't pass away in the house. He passed away in hospital. And then after he passed away, my nana moved to a retirement home, and I would go and visit her there. But for the majority of my life, this is the house I knew them to be in. So we got to drive past that. What was really cool is, where's the stop sharing? Oh, there's a stop sharing button. Okay, now I'm going to go back over and get it to the next picture. I know, we're going backwards and forwards. And so then what the next, and then as we're driving down the street, I'm learning about different people that came in out of Mum and Dad's lives, or Mum's lives specifically, because she lived in that house, and about the people that lived there and that sort of thing. And then as we're going past this one building on the right-hand side, which I did not get a picture of, my dad said, "See that building there?" I said, "Yep." He said, "That is the building that when they first brought Mack trucks into New Zealand, that's where they were assembled." I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. We got to the corner where there used to be a dairy. There's now a Burger King there. And opposite the Burger King on the left-hand side was a Popeyes. And beyond that was a Starbucks. Now, I'm shocked that Starbucks is in New Zealand. I know it took Starbucks a long time to get here. And like everybody complains about how bad the coffee is at Starbucks. And I'm like, well, you guys brought it in. But I will tell you this. Any Starbucks that I went past in the States that had a drive-through always had a very, very long line of cars waiting to get their coffee, whatever. We went across the road from Starbucks to the gas station to fill up the car with gas. And as we're coming out, I looked at that line and I said, that is the shortest drive-through line I have ever seen in my entire life at Starbucks. And my mum sort of like and there was like 3 cars, one at the window and two behind. There were 3 cars in the drive-through. And my mum looks at it and goes, well, I'm surprised there's even a line at a Starbucks. So and I will admit, I do like the double or triple chocolate Frappuccino from Starbucks. I very rarely get it. It's basically all chocolate with a little bit of coffee in there. And it's chopped up and nice. So that's the only thing I get from Starbucks, because I tried their coffee once. I personally do not like it. So I have never drunk the coffee, just my little double chocolate Frappuccino thingy. From there, we then went driving down the road. We had a list because I wanted to go to some op shops, to the thrift stores, look for some more tops to get, because I am releasing weight right now. Not really intentionally, but I've gone down 5 shirt sizes. And so I wanted to go and get some more tops, especially long sleeve ones, because we're in winter right now. And so we had a list that we were going to go to. And so then I had other places I wanted to go and visit as well. And so we then drove from the gas station. We then went to the house my parents first owned. They purchased, the house was being built when they got married. And when it was finished a few months later, they got to move in. That was the first home I ever knew. They brought me home from the hospital to this house. And it was quite special to see that. Don't get emotional now, Helen. This is the first house that I ever lived in, the first home. My parents built this home, and this is the first home they lived in. Now, if you look here, this stripe coming down the wall here next to the drain pipe, this stripe here is where the original house ended. This piece from here to here was added on by future owners of the place. Also, too, Mum said that this piece here, because we had the L shape, but this piece here, they have expanded it out back to make this room here bigger than what it was. And so this is the first house so those are the 2 big alterations that have been done. They put a double car garage over here as well. But they've expanded this piece out towards the back. And it looks like they have those folding doors where you just fold them open and you can just walk in and out of the house type of thing. So that's the first house that I ever lived in, the first house my parents ever owned. They were in a rental until then. And we went past, they couldn't remember the exact driveway. So we went past several and they go, well, that kind of looks like it because of the hill and all of that sort of stuff. So we got to see the flat that they were living in at the time. For those in America, a flat is an apartment. The flat that they were living in at the time, which had the rat in the wall, and the first night, and then there was one night that they went home and the rat ran up my dad's trouser legs and down again. And they immediately grabbed the mattress off the bed. I'm assuming they grabbed some clothes and bed linens as well, and came and slept in the living room of their new house. They'd just gotten the keys that day. And they very quickly moved in, and they had people who donated furniture for them and all that sort of stuff as well. So, yeah. And I said, well, when did you move after you got married? How long was it until you moved in? When did you move into the house? And they said, sometime after we got married. And I said, was it the same year? So this house was built in 1965. And they moved in, and they got married in March. So they moved in a few months later. They're not exactly sure of it. I came home to this place in December of 1966. So yeah, and that's the house that I lived in. Yes, I have no memories of that house. just as an FYI. What have I got as the next picture? Oh, these are all out of order. Oh, I can put them in order. That one, yeah, that one will work for us. Okay. From there, we drove past the hospital, but the building that I was actually born in has been torn down. Before it got torn down, my parents had to go and visit a friend of theirs who was in hospital there getting eye surgery done. And they took me in this back door and they said, see that door over there? And it had written on it, Father's waiting room. That's where my dad had to wait while Mum was delivering me. And then you went down the hallway and you came out, and there were these 2 windowed areas, these little rooms with windows on them. And that's where the nurses would come and hold the babies up so you could see your baby, where the fathers and the parents would come in and, here's your baby. And then you went into the ward where it was all nursery, which happened to be where their friend was in his hospital bed. I think he was the only one in the room, if I remember correctly. And then beyond that was like a sunroom. And they said any babies that had jaundice, had that yellow coloring, they were put into the sunroom area. So they were getting the sunlight on them to help cure the jaundice. From a window near where their friend was in his bed, we could look up and there was another wing up there, and Mum said, see that window up there? And she pointed to this window. I said, yep. Because Mum was a nurse at the hospital, I think she was one of her sisters at the time, their ranking, the matron turned around and says her being on general ward with the baby being in the nursery was not acceptable. So we got moved to a private room where Mum spent the rest of the week there, and her birthday, because her birthday is 2 days after mine. And so we couldn't see that because it had been demolished since that visit. But at least I have the memory of being in that space and seeing the space where it was and all that sort of thing. And then we drove down the road, and Mum pointed out where the nurses' barracks, I guess you could call it, dorms, nurses' dorms were, and they've now chopped it down. She said there used to be, there's that piece across there, then there was another piece there was another bigger piece over there, and the other two buildings have now been demolished, but there's just this old one there. And that's where she would, where she stayed during her nursing training. And then she had a flat across the road from there down the street, but we couldn't exactly remember. She couldn't exactly remember where on the street. We just drove past a whole bunch and said it's somewhere down here. Then we continued on and went past the place that they first had a flat together where they moved to after they got married, where they called it the Rat House. They couldn't quite remember the driveway, although we think we found it. So we know it was one of these 3 driveways that all went up onto a hill, because I remember having to drive up onto a hill, but they couldn't remember the street number. And then Dad said, well, they had a caravan down the bottom of the driveway sitting there, and that's where him, my Uncle Neil, Uncle Neil's my dad's brother-in-law, my Uncle Barry, who's Dad's youngest brother, and my grandfather spent the night before Dad's wedding, before Mum and Dad's wedding, in the caravan at the bottom of the hill of the Rat House. Not sure if anybody was staying in the Rat House, but that's where they spent the thing. And so we found one driveway that had that wide enough area for a caravan to sit, whereas the other ones didn't have that. So we're just going by process of elimination here at this point. But it was really cool because they're busy telling me stories. And the number of times I tell you people record. What did I do? Didn't record. I just sat there and just listened and laughed with them and all of that sort of thing. And then we went down to the plaza, which is a big shopping mall area, and walked through that. Nice, and it's morning tea time or brunch time. And so we walked through and couldn't really find a place to sit down to eat. Didn't like any of the options that were there. So we went outside because as we were talking about things on Sunday, yesterday, I mentioned the Opera House. Now, the Opera House, I have very fond memories of the Palmerston North Opera House. My mum has memories of the Palmerston North Opera House. It's a big role in our family. My grandparents at one point were members of the Palmerston North Operatic Society and got advance bookings on tickets and that sort of thing. I love theatre. I saw a lot of musical theatre there. We saw dance competitions there. We just went to a lot of performances there. And it had been torn down back in the 90s, I think it was. Back in the 90s, being torn down. It was constructed in 1904. Actually, it might have been the early 2000s when it got. I'd have to go back and have a look and see when they tore it down. But the guy in charge of the destruction company, couldn't think of another word, who helped demolish the thing, had the foresight to save the foundation stone of the Opera House. And last year, in October of last year, they mounted the foundation stone on the exact spot where it had sat, where it was placed in 1904. So we went and visited. And so after we'd been through the mall, Mum had bought some socks and stuff. We then went. I said, "Well, we're on Church Streets, and it's on Ashley, so it's just down there." And so we walked down to that area. No, that's before we got the socks. So we walked out of the mall down towards the foundation stone, because then we could carry on there to get to where we parked the car. And we saw the foundation stone there, and of course took pictures of that because it's a really, really cool building. This is the Palmerston North Opera House. It's as I knew it. It didn't change anything. And this is all part of the theatre area. And then these windows here are part of the backstage area. And after we'd seen Half a Sixpence, we're walking down this alley through here to get to where the car was parked. And we were kind of straggling behind. Everybody else had gone ahead and we were kind of straggling behind. But up in one of these windows, the window was open, the curtains were open, and some of the cast members were doing an improv show with the window as their stage. And like they would drop down and crawl back across the other side because they couldn't get to the other side without running past the window. And did this improv thing that went for like 5 to 10 minutes. It was absolutely brilliant. Had all of us that were down there and saw it absolutely in hysterics and stitches and laughing so hard. But it was just a really great thing. That's, you know, another great memory of this opera house. I saw My Fair Lady in there, Showboat, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Half a Sixpence. Did I say My Fair Lady? What else? Oh, Dick Whittington and His Cat was the pantomime. And if you've never seen a pantomime, it is really cool. The men play the women and the women play the men. And it's a lot of fun. And some of them will stick to script and some of them will improv. It's anything can at pantomimes, anything can happen. So this is the picture that they had there of the opera house. And then this is, I can get this to click. This is the foundation stone. And it said it was laid by E.O. Hurley, Esquire, Mayor, on November the 30th, 1904. And I can't remember what this bit says. It's something about the architecture. And this is how they have it there. They have it on this little thing, and they have this thing up here, and you can click the QR code, and it takes you to the full history of the opera house, which is really, really cool. So that was, even though I couldn't see the opera house, that was really cool to be able to see the foundation stone that was laid in 1904. It was just such an amazing, amazing memory. And then we went into Farmers that was there, did some shopping, came out and went back into our car. From there, we went to Mitre 10 to Columbia, where they have the Columbia Cafe, and had our brunch. I had a banana and chocolate chip muffin. Mum and Dad had heated cheese scones, and Dad and I had hot chocolates. Mum had her cup of tea. And then from there, we went to one of the op shops and dropped off. I had 3 shopping paper bags, which are this size. These size shopping bags. I had 3 of these full of clothes. And Mum and Dad had a queen size comforter or duvet that they no longer used and were getting rid of. So that all went into that. Then we went into the shop and I bought 2 tops from there. And then we went from there to, what did we go to, the Salvation Army then? No, we did Highbury House. Went to Highbury House. Now, Highbury House has a history with the Hendra family. My Nana volunteered at Highbury House for years. She was a seamstress by trade, and so any clothes that came in, she would look at them. If anything needed repairing, any repairs needed to be done to it, buttons needed to be sewn on, zips needed to be fixed, whatever, she did all of that before it was put out onto the floor for sale. And so we knew where it was, and I'm amazed it's still there. And when we got there and we go inside, I'm like, I don't remember this place at all, because I had spent, me and my sister from another mother, my very, very best friend, we had spent a lot of time in Highbury House. We would go with Nana. She would sit behind the counter. She would set herself up behind the counter with a pile of handwork that had been on, hand sewing stuff that had to be done, or ripping apart seams that had to be ripped apart so she could resew them. She spent a lot of time doing that. Our orders were to go and tidy the shop and make sure that, you know, all the mediums were together, all the larges were together, you know, making sure the clothing sizes were together and stuff. We go into the store and I'm like, they've changed this. This doesn't look familiar to me at all. And by the end of our browse through the store, we came to because I'm looking and they had this loft above the counter area. And I said, Mum, there was never a loft above the counter area. And I'm looking around and going, no, this isn't the right place. And as we got out there, I said, Mum, I think they've moved into that space since Nana used to work there. She says, why is that? I said, because when Nana would sit behind the counter, there was nothing above. There was no loft area above. And she had a big picture window behind her and one to her side because she would sit in the corner to catch the light. And the counter and she was standing behind the counter. So you'd go through this one had a sliding door. You'd go through a swing door, go in, and then the counter would be here. She'd have her chair there where she would sit. And then there'll be the big picture window there, the big picture window there. There'd be the counter. Over this way was some racks of clothes. And then there was bookcases full of shelving full of knickknacks and that sort of thing. Then you walk through to another room. And that would be where most of the clothing was. And there were fitting rooms back there, and more knickknacks and that sort of stuff. And I said, this one we walked in through a sliding door. Yes, the counter was over there, which was the right place, but it had a loft above it, which was never there. And then it went all the way back to the back where there was fitting rooms with all this clothing in between. And then there was an entry into another area on this side, which was all furniture and shelves of knickknacks and that sort of thing. And I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. I don't remember this. This is what I remember. And so we drove down the end of the shopping mall, and there was like and I don't remember it being in the middle of well, close to that end. I said it was on the end because we had that big picture window behind the counter. And so we went down the end and there was now some fast food takeout places that were down there. And I said, I'm pretty sure that that's the door that we went through to get into the store, and blah, 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 blah. And so we have concluded that they moved. I probably should have gone and asked one of the volunteers in there when they moved into that space and just asked them point blank, when did you guys move into this space? But I didn't think to do that at the time. So we left there and we went to the Salvation Army thrift store where I got 3 more tops. So I got 5 tops today, which I was happy about, all long sleeved or t-shirt type ones. I just want plain t-shirts. But got 3 more tops there. From there, I then said I'm now done with the op shops. From there, we then drove out of town. Oh, we drove past the street that Dad was living in at the time when he met Mum. And he had a caravan on somebody's front yard. And so we went down the street and he goes, these papers all got fences on, so I can't really see the houses to know. He says, but I remember the top looking something like that. And so we drove down the street and there was a row of houses. Some had the little things at the top, some didn't. So it was one of those. He couldn't exactly remember the number. He thought it was 38. We looked at 30 and he goes, no, that doesn't ring a bell. So, this was over 60 years ago for them. And so from there, we drove out of town and used to go through the Manawatu Gorge to get to the Wairarapa on the other side, which is another district of the Greater Wellington area, into Woodville. But the gorge had a couple of major slips, and so they ended up not reopening that road, and they ended up building this new road that went over the hills and down. So we went up there, and they had some viewing areas up there where you could see. So we went up there to the viewing areas and, I didn't change the picture. Okay, well, I can do that when we get there. And we looked at the view. Is this the right one? Oh, no, that's the last one. Hang on. Let's try this one. No. Yeah, there's the view. Okay, so this is the starting of the view. This is where Palmerston North is in here. This is the Manawatu River that goes through the gorge. This looks over towards, hang on, got to get back here again. The right one, that one. This is Ashurst in here, which is a little town that's there. And then, hang on, that was the first one. Sorry, I'm going backwards and forwards. And this is more of Ashurst over here as well. And so we went up over the hill down to where there's a roundabout, went around the roundabout and came back over the hill, and then headed back towards Levin. Oops, I forgot to stop sharing. And there's one place in Levin that I wanted to visit. Yes, that's it. That our minister from the church had told us about, and it's called RJ's. And RJ's is a confectionery store, and this was their factory outlet store. And I'm like, I love factory outlets. And so we drove. We first went past a friend's place that had just sold, because Mum and Dad wanted to go down the road that their road went off to see, because they're expanding the expressway, and so she wanted to see how far from their house the expressway was. And so we figured out where that was, and then we drove past their place to get back out and headed into Levin. Oh no, hang on, that was after Levin. Sorry, getting my things mixed up. And so we went to RJ's. This is my bag. There's about 2.5 kilos of candy in here, which is about a pound. A pound is 2.2042 kilos to a pound, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so of course I had to go through the factory thing. This is Black Knight pieces, and anybody know Black Knight knows that it's licorice, and you can get boxes that are about a foot long, and they are made of straps, and you've got ones that have the very thin straps of licorice, or you can get these in like long pieces as well, and you get them in a box. This is just pieces. These are just the offcuts. There's different sizes in here and all that sort of thing. So I was very happy about that. This one here is a very good licorice. It has chocolate in the middle of the licorice. You know there has to be chocolate in there. So definitely had to get some of that. Now, remember, I only allow myself 2 pieces of candy a day when I have candy in the house. This is going to last me a few months. These here are barley sugars, and barley sugar is basically a candy that is just plain sugar, and it's good for boosting energy. When I was in high school, we did the 40-hour famine, which is when from, I think it was like 5 p.m. on Friday through to whatever it was on Sunday morning. We stayed at the high school. The girls were in the library, the guys were in the typing room, and We weren't allowed to eat anything while we're during this 40-hour famine. We had to meet in the gym first. Given all the rules, we could drink as much water, tea, and coffee as we wanted, but we were not allowed to eat anything. And every 4 hours, we got given a barley sugar to keep us going. That's where the barley sugars came in. But we basically spent the weekend playing games, reading, just hanging out. And we hung out in the staff room, which was really cool. So those barley sugars are good for instant energy if you need instant energy. These are Sherbet Fizz raspberries. I love raspberry sours, but Altoids don't make them anymore. So I was very disappointed about that. And so I said to the lady there was absolutely awesome. And she was talking about the Sherbet Fizzes. And I said, which is your favorite? And she said raspberry. I said, fine, I will try that since I like the raspberry Altoids, the Altoids raspberry sours when they used to have them. They haven't had them for a lot of years. They had them when Brad had his first surgery in 2008. But I don't know how long after that they stopped making them. So I have that. Then I have my favorite. Licorice of all sorts. As you can see, these are different sizes. This is like end of runs. This is actually a 750 gram bag, so 3/4 of a kilo. The other bags are all 500 kilos. But these are licorice all sorts. And like the pink, I'm trying to remember the flavors. The green are lime. The yellow is lemon. The pink is, no, the white was coconut. There's no white in there. Orange is orange. Lemon is the yellow. What was the pink? I don't remember. But there's like little mini pieces in here. There's big pieces in here. End of run stuff. You can see down here with this piece. So that was and I'm like looking at this saying, I'm only allowed 2 pieces a day. This is going to last me a few months. Yes. So did my little shop there. Mum and Dad got a couple of bags of candy as well. Look at this bag. This is really cool. It folds up into, this is my strawberry. It now makes a strawberry. This is my shopping bag. It goes in my backpack as a strawberry. It comes out as a shopping bag. So yes, that was my other purchase. And then we came home. And so had to have something to eat because I hadn't eaten since like 10 o'clock that morning. It's now 5:20 in the afternoon. I've been home about an hour. I guess I was getting ready for the podcast and stuff. Oh, hang on. I even have this one here. Got to go here. This is the entry into RJ's where it points you to the factory shop. And then this is, you come down here, go around the corner, come in, and you can see here there's an edging for one of those photo frames that you can stand in and have your picture taken in. We didn't do that. And then you walk in the sliding door, and this is all the factory. This whole wall here is factory, and then it's quite deep as well. So they have all the seconds. They have bins of seconds, and it's like it was $9 for 2 bags of seconds, which were the licorice all sorts. All 4 of those except for the sherbets. This was $2 for this bag. The others were all 2 for $9. So $20 exact was my haul today. But it was a great day, and as we're driving up and driving back and driving around, there's all these stories being shared, and I'm asking questions about, well, how long did you live there, and how long did you live there, and where did you go to school, and all of that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of great memory sharing. And then we get home here, and I'm getting my stuff out of the car. All three bags of these, all 3 of these bags. And I said to Mum, I said, I just realized something. She goes, what's that? I said, I totally forgot to record any of the conversations we had today when we were sharing the stories and stuff. And she just looks at me and she goes, what do you mean? I says, well, usually and here's me telling you guys, record these conversations. I said, I'm always constantly telling people to record, and I totally forget every time because I just get so engrossed in the story that I forget. Sometimes I remember partway through, and sometimes I forget, but I forget to record them. So I'm admitting I forget to record, and please record. So I'm going to have to be more diligent about doing that. But that was my day today, going down memory lane. It was amazing to go down. So much history came up, family history and things. And then I'd say, oh, how far are we away from a certain thing? And they say, oh, that's over that way. And I'm sort of like, oh, we won't worry about that today. We'll do that another time. And because there's a playground there called the Esplanade, which we used to always go and play in. And they had this spaceship rocket thing that you would climb up on the ladder on one side and go down the slide on the other side, stand inside and then go down the slide on the other side. They had a little paddling pool there. They had a roundabout thing. And so I just wanted to go through and see how much that had changed over the time. But we had a really good day, and I thank my parents today for taking me down memory lane, and for the memories that they shared and things like that. So it was a totally super fantastic sparkling day. It was awesome. Absolutely loved every minute of it. And now I'm going to sit down and try and remember what was said so I can write it down. So at least I have that, and then I'll go back and check my memories with them and maybe record. But with that, I am out of here. Oh, hang on. We do have a challenge for you. Can't forget the challenge. Let's see. Choose one place from your family's past and go there. Take a photograph. Spend a few quiet minutes looking around. Ask yourself, what happened here? Who stood where I am standing? What stories live in this place? Then write down everything you remember. Sometimes the best way to discover your family's history isn't through another record. It's by returning to the places where your family's stories were lived. And let us know in the comments below about some of the stories that you come across. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling day, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konera.